Yeah, I had to put him back up again. Important. Good evening, Scotland. Good evening, social media land. I hope you're well. It is Friday, the 25th of October, 2024. Welcome to Saorsa Live. We're streaming across Facebook, we're streaming across YouTube and TikTok tonight, so please do take the time to like and share across all these platforms. The more likes, the more shares, the more people come in, the more people will get the positive message of Scottish independence. If you lose any of the live streams for any reason tonight, please head to any of the other platforms that we're broadcasting into to continue to participate in the chat. We're also recording this live and all the comments to ensure the security and integrity of the stream. Right, so tonight, I want you to imagine a country promised control over its future, bound by decisions made miles away. That's basically the reality for Scotland today. While Unionist parties claim to represent Scottish interests, their loyalties lie with Westminster, where policies are shaped not for Scotland, but for the Union. We're going to ask the real questions tonight. How can parties that answer to London ever put Scotland's unique interests and needs first? How can true representation come from branches bound by UK-wide priorities? And the SNP, as they have shown, when powers are used boldly for Scotland, we can see transformative changes within devolution, free tuition, improved healthcare and progressive welfare. But the glass ceiling that's the limit of devolution's potential is never going to allow us to go any further. Westminster will never ever allow Scotland full control within the Union. Tonight we're going to get into all this and discuss the next logical step It isn't just about devolution, it's about true independence to finally put Scotland's future into its own hands. But before, as always, I will play the first jingle. It's a very important message, so please listen. We start our lives with an important reminder that we are fighting one of the world's greatest propaganda machines, the British state and their right-wing oligarch-run media. To combat this, we ask that you always follow, like and share, and comment positively across all social media platforms on any of your favourite Scottish independence creators and commentators. By doing this, you help to spread the word of our cause and manipulate social media algorithms to benefit our struggle. So please, for now, like and share this live stream, and if you haven't already, follow this account. Thank you. Cool, and double cool. Right, let's see who we have coming on. Hey, Barry Lancelot, good to see you across in TikTok land. Do you know what? This is the first time that we've had more people across in YouTube land than we've had in TikTok land. So if you're watching in TikTok land, you're going to have to share it. You're going to have to batter that screen and do those likes like that particular message just said. Let's see if we've got anybody in Facebook land. Nah, still tumbleweeds there. Still tumbleweeds. Don't understand that. But we have Age of Aquarius. How are you doing, friend? And Dave and Robert across in YouTube land. If you're also watching in YouTube land, just please just say hello in the chat. If you can't chat, that's because you don't subscribe. You'll have to subscribe, then wait 5 minutes. That's one of the conditions that I put on there. And if you're wondering why I'm looking over here, camera, it's because that is where YouTube land is. Okay, that's where that is. Somebody asked me that in a DM last week. Why do you keep looking over there? Well, that's because that's where that particular screen is. Good. Right then. So how are we all? Hope you've had a good week. I hope that you're ready to get into tonight. It's about evolution, not devolution. So let's get on with it. Oh, there's Chris across in TikTok land as well. Brilliant. And there is a few other folk. Dave's jumped from over here to over here. And there's Geordie as well. Thanks very much. Okay, we're just going to get into it. Part one. I want you to think about this for a second. I want you to go down the lines of remembering devolution before the SNP. All right, because they always get a bad rep, and we're going to get into why that is. So imagine being promised control of your own future, yet finding every decision is still tethered to someone else's interests. This is devolution in Scotland today. At least when it's managed by Unionist parties in Holyrood. In 1999, devolution was hailed as a moment of transformation for Scotland, a new chapter in which Scots would have a greater say in their own affairs. The Scottish Parliament was supposed to bring decisions closer to the people to allow Scotland to shape its own path. But here we are, over 2 decades later, and we need to ask ourselves, has devolution actually well and truly delivered? Or is it just simply become a leash holding Scotland back from its full potential? The truth is that under Unionist parties, devolution has fallen short. Unionist parties like Labour, the Conservatives and Liberal Democrats have never really fought to make devolution work for the benefit of Scotland. Instead, they've focused on keeping Westminster happy. And if that's their priority, how can they ever prioritise Scotland? From the very beginning, Unionist parties approached devolution with caution, afraid to test the limits to see what it could achieve. Between 1999 and 2007, Labour and the Liberal Democrats ran the Scottish Government, and their goal was clear. Keep Westminster comfortable, avoid any bold moves, and maintain the status quo. Yes, devolution granted Scotland some important powers over health, education and justice. But were those powers fully utilised to benefit the people of Scotland? Not really by the Unionists. Take tuition fees, for example. In 2000, Labour introduced a graduate endowment scheme that made only minimal changes. leaving many Scottish students still burdened with financial hardship. This was a timid step, a cowardly step, a compromise to avoid pushing Westminster too far. It wasn't until the SNP took control that tuition fees were abolished entirely, showing what could have been done all along if Unionist parties had put Scotland first. Healthcare tells a similar story. While the introduction of free personal care for the elderly in 2002 was a bright spot, it was an exception and not the rule. Unionist parties, content with small adjustments, failed to address the deeper issues in the NHS: waiting times, health inequalities, and long-term underinvestment. Instead of meaningful reforms, they tinkered at the edges, leaving the people of Scotland with a healthcare system that still needed significant improvement. Meanwhile, the SNP, when given the opportunity, demonstrated how these powers could be truly used to prioritise public health, proving again that devolution works when it's used boldly and not cautiously. Even in areas like infrastructure, Unionist parties kept their gaze fixed on Westminster. Major transport decisions were made with London's priorities in mind, not Scotland's. And instead of pushing for full fiscal autonomy that would allow Scotland to invest in its own future, the Liberal Democrats and Labour chose to play it safe. They were more concerned with preserving the Union than with devolution, using devolution to its fullest potential. Even after the independence referendum in 2014, when Westminster promised more powers, Unionist parties continued to resist any more real devolution. In key areas like tax, welfare, they held back, unwilling to grant Holyrood the powers it needed to make real changes in Scotland. Why? Because the Unionist parties are fundamentally about preserving the status quo of the UK. Their goal is not to empower Scotland, but to ensure that Scotland remains under the control of Westminster. And that's the crux of the issue. As long as Unionist parties are in power in Holyrood, Scotland will never be able to control its own destiny. The first loyalty will always be to Westminster, never to the people of Scotland. The SNP has shown that devolution, when used boldly, it can make a difference. Free tuition, better healthcare, etc., progressive welfare policies. All these were possible because the SNP were not afraid to push the limits of devolution. But devolution, even when used effectively, has its limits. There is a glass ceiling on what devolution can achieve, and Westminster is determined to keep Scotland beneath it. The UK government has consistently refused to grant more powers to Holyrood, no matter how effectively the SNP has demonstrated Scotland's ability to govern itself, and Unionist parties will never ever push for more. Promises made in 2014, like let's do the Scotland Act of 2016, were all hailed as major steps forward, but they fell far short of meaningful fiscal and welfare autonomy, things that Scotland actually needs. Meanwhile, decisions like Brexit, where Scotland overwhelmingly opposed it, are made in London with no regard for what the Scottish people wanted. This is the reality. As long as Unionist parties hold sway in Holyrood, as long as they sit there in their List 1 seats, they will be badgering onto us and telling us that we're not good enough, doing what their masters in London want them to do. And that's really it for that bit. But devolution as it stands can't take us any further. It can't take us any further. We are limited to what we can do. So we need to evolve and not devolve. Independence is not about just breaking away from the UK. It's about unlocking Scotland's full potential. It's about ensuring that Scotland's future is shaped by those who live here, not by politicians in London whose primary focus will always be the Union, and not about politicians here in Holyrood who have the same visions as their London-centric masters. Devolution, while beneficial in some areas, will always be limited by Westminster's control. The Unionist parties have shown time and time again that they will not fight for Scotland's full potential. Independence is the next logical step for Scotland's evolution, and it's time to take that step.
Imagine being told you have control over your future, but every major decision is still made by someone else. That's devolution in Scotland, when managed by Unionist parties. For over 2 decades, the Scottish Parliament was supposed to bring decisions closer to the people. Yet Unionist parties like Labour and the Conservatives kept their focus on Westminster. Instead of pushing for real change, they maintained the status quo, putting Scotland's needs second. Meanwhile, the SNP has shown what devolution can truly achieve when used boldly: free tuition, better healthcare, progressive welfare policies. But devolution has limits, and Westminster is determined to keep Scotland beneath a glass ceiling. It's time for independence, the next step in unlocking Scotland's full potential.
Quite like that boot picture, alright? Kind of inspired by one that Kareem did and chucked around the various, Facebook pages. I do like it. Let's have a quick look to see who's around. I did see Indie Dave and Kareem come into TikTok land. Scotland. Hope you're good. Celtic to the core. Is that Celtic or Celtic to the core? Doesn't matter. Hope you're welcome there. Some good comments already coming in across in YouTube land. Neil, you're saying the mitigating interventions because Westminster is harmful. A devolved parliament will always be left to help rather than transform. You're absolutely right. It's like we want to push the boundaries. We want to push out of this box, all right? And we can't do it. So we just have to do what we can do. How you doing, Vinny? How you doing, Solway? I'm really glad that you're back and saying hello again, Solway. It's really nice to see you. So yeah, the Unionist parties didn't do a great job. It was the infancy of devolution, so I think that's probably their only excuse. But the main reason is because they were Unionist parties. They didn't really want to rock the boat. They didn't want to push the boundaries to see what they could do to make Scotland better. That didn't happen until the SNP came in, and love them or hate them. I mean, seriously, love them or hate them, you know, they still did far much more for Scotland because they're a pro-Scottish party by a long shot, which is good. Right, so I've got some incredible admins in tonight, so if I miss any questions, admin guys, please turn around, make sure that you send me a WhatsApp and tell me if there are any questions that I miss while I go through each discussion point. That would be amazing. We're going to move on to the next part, and this is going to be discussing a little bit more about how the SNP were a bit more different from the Unionist parties. So this time, I want you to imagine a government unafraid to push the boundaries, a government that truly places the needs of its people above the priority of powers in a distant city. In 2007, Scotland found that government in the SNP. From the moment the SNP took office, they showed what devolution could achieve when it was used to truly benefit Scotland. For years, the Unionist parties treated devolution with caution, afraid to challenge Westminster or fully use the powers granted to Scotland. But the SNP took a different path, and it wasn't long before real change began to take shape. Until the SNP, under the SNP, the needs of the Scottish people came first. Council tax was frozen, lifting a financial burden from households across the country. Prescription charges were scrapped, making healthcare more accessible to everyone, regardless of income. Tuition fees for university students abolished entirely. This was a stark contrast to the Unionist governments that came before, governments more concerned with maintaining Westminster's approval than delivering for Scotland. Excuse me. The SNP didn't ask for permission to act in Scotland's interests. They just simply did it. When the SNP won a majority in 2011, they didn't hesitate to push the boundaries of devolution even further. They made significant improvement to public services while also making the case for independence, a clear sign that they were willing to fight for Scotland's full potential. In education, they made sure that higher education in Scotland remained free, even as tuition fees soared in the rest of the UK under Westminster's policies. While London pushed students into debt, the SNP protected future generations, prioritising education as a right and not a privilege. These bold decisions were the clearest demonstration yet of what devolution could do when used with purpose. But the SNP worked to improve lives. The Unionist media and the Westminster critics accused them of focusing too much on independence, as if the pursuit of self-governance was somehow distracted from their effective leadership. Well, what was the reality? While Westminster sought to claw back power, the SNP continued to expand childcare, introduced progressive policies like the baby box programme for new parents, and they used devolved welfare powers to shield Scotland from Westminster's austerity measures. This wasn't just about independence, it was about governing well, and it was about proving that Scotland could govern herself. Even as Westminster introduced damaging legislation like the UK Internal Market Act, which sought to undermine Holyrood's power over vital issues like food standards and environmental protections, the SNP pressed on. They made progress where Unionist parties had only made excuses. They governed with a vision for Scotland that prioritised Scottish values, fairness, inclusion and opportunity, rather than following London's lead. The SNP's actions speak louder than the Unionists' media criticism. While they were accused of focusing on independence at the expense of governance, the evidence shows the opposite. It was Westminster, not the SNP, that continually undermined Scotland's governments. Excuse me for a second. My God, what's wrong with my throat tonight? That's better. When you look at the results, it becomes clear. The SNP has used devolution in ways that put Scotland first. Introduction of free prescription, tuition fees, expanded healthcare and social welfare protections were not just political decisions, they were reflections of a government committed to the people it represents. Compare that to Westminster's priorities: raising of tuition fees, implementing austerity and introducing policies like Brexit, which Scotland overwhelmingly rejected. In every way that mattered, the SNP has demonstrated that when devolution is used to its fullest potential, Scotland thrives. But let's not forget the bigger picture. Devolution, no matter how effective it's used, has a limit. There is a glass ceiling on what devolution can achieve for Scotland. As long as Westminster retains control, Scotland will always be held back from reaching its full potential. The SNP has shown Scotland is more capable of governing herself, of making decisions that reflect the needs of its people, but devolution alone can't deliver the freedom that Scotland needs to fully realise its potential. The fight for independence is not just about abandoning devolution, it's about evolving beyond it. It's about unlocking our ability to govern fully, free from Westminster's interference. The SNP track record is proof that Scotland can govern itself effectively and with the focus of the people who live here. So it's now time to take that next step. It's time for Scotland to embrace independence, not just as political ambition, but as the logical next phase of its evolution. The future of Scotland doesn't lie in Westminster's hands. It lies in our hands.
In 2007, the Scottish National Party took office and changed the course of devolution. Unlike the cautious Unionist parties before them, the SNP pushed boundaries to truly benefit Scotland. They froze council tax, scrapped prescription charges, and abolished tuition fees, making bold decisions that put the people of Scotland first. While Westminster focused on austerity and Brexit, the SNP prioritised Scottish values, fairness, inclusion, and opportunity. But devolution has limits. Westminster still holds ultimate control, preventing Scotland from reaching its full potential. Independence isn't about rejecting devolution, it's the next step, unlocking Scotland's ability to govern fully for the benefit of its people. The future of Scotland belongs in our hands. not Westminster's.
I am all bunged up to pot here. It's crazy. Right, let's see if we have anybody in Facebook land. We had Kareem there earlier on. Oh, hello, Julie. How are you? Thank you for saying hello. I really appreciate that. You, apart from my Kareem, you are my first person to actually have a proper chat and say hello here. You are most very, very welcome. That's great. No more tumbleweeds in Facebook land. Very happy. Very happy. Okay, so let's have a quick look in YouTube land, because there was a great question, a great comment by Terry Mulholland. Yep, they had Alex at the helm back then. Totally agree. He was a different breed of person completely. And he had a different focus on the majority government, how to use devolution and everything like that. So I totally agree with you. It doesn't mean that we can't move forward past devolution. There's just the whole mechanics of getting independence thing that people say there's not a way to do it. If the people of Scotland want independence, they'll get independence. That's the way it works. We don't need the permission of a far-off government to say, yes, okay, we'll allow you to choose. No, it doesn't work that way. We have an expression of our self-determination coming up in 2026. And if people get over themselves and use that properly with a proper vote to not just put in, say, an SNP government, but also a pro-Scottish opposition, okay, we can demonstrate clearly that this is what we want, okay? Somebody actually accused me of gerrymandering and a gerrymandering agenda on Facebook about me wanting to give my second vote to an alternative independence party, and also to encourage everybody else to do that. Now, we can talk about that all night, but my opinion is, okay, you take a risk by doing SNP1 and SNP2. Yes, that's how we got it back in 2011, but it was that perfect storm of the right amount of constituency seats versus the right amount of list votes. All right. So that, I totally agree. It happened, and it was a good thing that it happened. It gave Alex the opportunity to push for a first referendum. It made the whole campaign, the whole conversation, the national conversation far more interesting and direct. And that's how we moved from, about 23% for yes to 45%. We're now sitting above 50%. Westminster are terrified of that, utterly terrified of that. And no wonder, they've got nothing to campaign on. So this is why we need to take the rules and throw them out the window and use any legal ballot box event as a method of our self-determination, without a doubt. So whereas SNP 1 and 2 is a risk, it's a risk of not getting more pro-Scottish bums on seats. If we all voted with our second vote to any other indie party or any individual that is pro-independence, tell you right now, if we had 1.1 million of us voting like that, it would be guaranteed we would get about an extra 30 pro-indie seats. We have to get past our addiction to politics and move forward with a national cause. That's the mentality we need to be in for that. And I'm sorry if I upset anybody. It's my opinion that that's the case. But when you look at the mechanics of how everything is calculated for that, we can actually take this whole evolution of devolution and push devolution away and evolve Scotland, evolve Holyrood into a Scottish-centric parliament. And we're going to talk a little bit more towards the end of tonight with regards to why would we want to have English-based parties in Holyrood anyway. Okay, let's have a quick other look around for... Yes, who's that? 9/11/24/7. Yes, tactical in 2026. Tactical. Yeah, treat it as a national cause. If we treat it like a national cause, we have a better opportunity of putting more bums on the seats. I totally agree with that. What have we got across here in TikTok land? Good conversation going on. Yeah, keep double taps, Jordy. Keep double tapping the screen. We've got 3.9 thousand likes. If everybody in TikTok land was to tap that screen and fill up their little bar we'd have another 1,000. The goal is, by the end of tonight, to reach 10,000 likes across in TikTok land. And in YouTube land, everybody that's watching just now, it's your job tonight to take this live stream once it's finished and go and chuck it on your YouTube, on your Facebook, and chuck it around some groups as well. All right, that would be amazing. And let's have a look at Facebook land, see if Julie's still there. Julie, if you're still there, give us a thumbs up. You're my #1 Facebook fan. Love it. Okay, cool. Right, let me drink a coffee. I don't know why I'm so bunged up there. And we're going to go on to talking about the glass. Oh, God. The glass ceiling of devolution. Okay, right. It's all about imagining. It's all about putting yourself in the position tonight. So imagine a nation that has tasted autonomy, but is held back from reaching its full potential. Well, that's where Scotland finds itself today. And the truth is, devolution, as it stands, has run its course. In 1999, devolution was meant to be a turning point, a new era where Scotland could control its own affairs. And yes, devolution has undoubtedly improved Scotland in many ways. We've seen the Scottish Parliament take meaningful steps to shape public policy, from the tuition fees, prescription, etc. But there is a glass ceiling on what devolution can achieve. No matter how effectively devolved powers are used, they are limited by what Westminster allows. Time and time again, we've seen the UK government refuse to grant more powers to Holyrood, even as the SNP demonstrated how capable Scotland is at governing herself. So just think about this, right? Who is better at understanding the Scots than Scottish people? Do we think that Sir Keir Starmer of the Labour Party, the party of the workers, for this set of islands known as the United Kingdom, do we think that he knows us better and can make decisions for us? I want you to think about that and answer that in the chat while I continue. Right, I want to talk about this after the jingle at the end of this. So we need to ask ourselves as well, if devolution has taken us as far as it can go, what is the next step? And the answer is clear, and that is independence. It's the natural progression for a country that is ready to take full control of its destiny. And what really drives me mental about this is we have been independent as a nation longer than we have been under the rule and the thumb and the boot heel of Westminster. It's only been 300 years and Scotland's been around for friggin' thousands. Is it after midnight yet? Almost. Anyway, let me just move on. The Unionist parties have never fought for devolution to evolve. In fact, they've done the opposite. Even when promises were made in 2014, those promises, within the form of the vow, were quickly broken or watered down. In 2016, the Scotland Act 2016 was hailed as the most extensive devolution ever, but it really delivered nothing. No fiscal autonomy, no full control over welfare. It fell far short of that. And while Holyrood waits for real powers, Westminster continues to make decisions that impact our future without regard for what the people of Scotland want. Brexit, these 4 massive cables getting built down the east coast to siphon our renewable wealth and land it in England. You know, we wanted to be part of the European Union. You know, look at the damage that's done to Scotland and, well, the rest of the islands. But we were dragged out by Westminster. And this is what happens when a nation does not have full control over its own affairs. They're ignored. They're left like poor cousins swinging in the wind, you know? So whether it's maintaining ties with Europe, protecting our public services, or making progressive environmental decisions, the bottle bank thing, I just want to talk about that. I work in retail, right? Okay, and that bottle bank thing was going to be great. Okay, the machines were astounding. I got trained on how to use them. And I think, did Wales not get it taken away as well? But just recently in Ireland, it's shown to be unbelievably successful. Why did Westminster stop that then? Is it because microbreweries in England couldn't sell their goods up here because it was going to cost too much to change the label? Can technology not fix that? I don't know, honestly. Anyway, Holyrood has shown us that it's more than capable of governing in ways that reflects our Scottish values. But devolution by its very nature can only take us so far. There is always a limit, because at the end of the day, guess who holds the power? Who holds the final say in all this? It's Westminster. Of course it is. And the Unionist parties, whether it's Labour, the Tories or the Liberal Democrats, have shown time and time again that they will never fight for us. They will never fight for the Scottish people. They will never put our interests first. So where does that leave us? Well, the only way forward for us is independence. Devolution, while beneficial, will always be limited by those cronies' control. And the SNP, even in the face of constant attacks by the media and opposition from opposition from Westminster, has proven that Scotland can still govern itself effectively, even when their leaders are attacked, like Salmond was attacked, Nicola Sturgeon was attacked. You know, we were stymied with various different bills. It was divide and conquer throughout the media all the time, but we're still doing things for the Scottish people. Still doing them. In the face of utter, the biggest fight that Scotland's really ever been in, we're still doing the right things. Okay? We could forge ahead with better ties to Europe. We could create a fairer, more just society by just gaining control over our welfare policies. We could protect our national resources and make progressive decisions about the environment without interference from London. But these changes are only possible with independence. They will never come with devolution. So remember what I said earlier on, okay? Independence isn't about just leaving the UK. It's about unlocking Scotland's full potential. And are you telling me that we're going to be a crappy neighbour to the rest of the people on these islands? Of course we're not. I reckon that Scotland would, as an independent country, would treat the people of England far better than their politicians have. You know, I reckon that we would treat the people of England far better than the politicians have treated us. You know? But devolution can't take us any further. There is a glass ceiling. We can see the potential. We can see what we can do. We're looking up at that sky and thinking to ourselves, hey, we need to get through that glass ceiling. We need to get past everything. And the only way to do that, again, is with independence. And they will never give us the Section 30. That's never going to happen. So we just have to express ourselves at any legal ballot box event. Keep going on about this, but I will not stop until 2026 talking about this. It needs to be done. Okay? Good. Let's move on.
Scotland has made great strides under devolution, but there's a glass ceiling on what it can achieve. No matter how effectively Holyrood uses its powers, Westminster still holds ultimate control. Time and again, the UK government has refused to grant Scotland more autonomy, ignoring the will of the Scottish people. The clearest example is Brexit, where Scotland's vote to remain in the EU was disregarded. Independence isn't about rejecting devolution, it's about unlocking Scotland's full potential. It's about gaining the freedom to make decisions that truly reflect Scottish values. Devolution has run its course, and now it's time for Scotland to evolve into an independent nation. The future of Scotland lies in our hands.
It does, it lies in our hands. And I think when the people of Scotland understand and realise that the power that they have, even just to utilise the cross in the box, all the better. We have another person in Facebook land. Thank you very much, Bruce Borthwick from Dalgety Bay, across the water there. One of my favourite places. Seriously, it's the big aquarium. My autistic son loves visiting there. He's wild about fish, which is great. And interesting to say, Sovereign Scott, me too. When Salvo win our case with the ICJ, the people will see that the date for indie vote is imminent. I agree with you. I don't disagree with Salvo's cause whatsoever. Okay, I think that Salvo and Liberation Scot have got a tremendous thing. I think it's part of the whole bigger picture, and I think you guys should be encouraged to take our cause international. And we also need to be fighting the cause at home as well. And we need to be fighting the cause against Westminster. And we need to be not just political, we need to be international, and we need to be grassrootsy. Okay, and the grassrootsy thing is kind of my battleground. It's where I like this whole social media thing, the ability to reach out and talk to 20 odd people between several different platforms and do my best to inspire them to move a whole conversation forward. But you guys need to be encouraged, okay? And you need to be part of the bigger picture. It's not just one way of being right, and it's not just another way of being right. It's about everything working together, because when you guys move forward across with the international thing, it gives us more leverage here. When we have more people believing in independence, it gives you guys more leverage there. It's all about it together. And as soon as we actually get that mentality that it's a national cause and not a political friggin' policy, and not just another thing or a way to be pounded down by other people on social media. As soon as we get that it's a national cause, we'll win it. We will win it, because you will get the support across in Salvo. The grassroots will support it. And then as a whole collective, we then say, listen, international community, this is what's going on in the UN. This is what's going on with the ICJ. This is what's going on. Okay, look at us. We are now expressing our self-determination at local elections and at national elections. Look, we have a minority government in Holyrood, and we have a vast swathe of the opposition, all pro-independence. We have the ears and the eyes of the ICJ and the UN looking at us now going, wait a minute, what's going on? It's a collective. It needs to work together with overlapping circles of strength, potential, and the ability to move it forward together. It's so important. I'm so glad that you said that, Bruce. Thank you so much. Incidentally, I used to wave the flags of Salvo as well, but I wanted to concentrate on this a little bit more. But I really appreciate you saying that. Let's have a look in TikTok land. You guys are always having great conversations there. I always miss out on the things there. Where are we up to? Oh, 8.7 thousand likes. Keep tapping. Keep tapping. You've got the easy way of doing it across in TikTok land, and across in YouTube land. It's tiny writing on my screen there. Hold on. A new party has now emerged. Peter Bell. Yeah, the Scotland Party. I've been following that. I wanted to get up to their launch. Don't know whether I will. I really wanted to. But yeah, I think that's a good thing. I think that when we have different political entities to vote for, we need to understand that, in my opinion, it's not just about policy. We've got the ISP, we've got ALPA, we've got the New Scotland Party. Okay, these guys and the SNP cannot be fighting. They cannot be fighting. If you look at all the banners that I use, I'm going to get the New Scotland Party's banner as well, logo, and stick that on my website too. But I try to include all the badges of the political party. Now, I'm a card-carrying member of the SNP, have been for a long time. I'm not a zealot of the SNP. If ALPA were the biggest party, I would be a card-carrying member of them. If ISP or Greens or whomever, the New Scotland Party, okay, the SSP, if they were the biggest party of independence, I'd be basically funding them, all right? I don't have a problem with the SNP. I have a problem with some of their policies, some of their decisions. Of course I do, because that's a healthy thing to do. But I can't blindly follow one party. But what I can say comfortably and confidently is, if our smaller parties and the SNP don't work together, right, it's not going to be achievable from the political sense. Meanwhile, Salvo are going and doing other things globally, right? ICJ and UN, right? taking our our constitution from back pre Treaty of the Union time and talking about that and seeing if we can move it forward that way, okay, that's fine. Okay, I'm all for that. But will the SNP work with anybody else? I don't know. They've always been about both votes SNP, which has only ever worked once and it's been tried to replicate. I'm not going to sit here and mock them. It's my job to try and convince people in my branch to think differently. A lot of them do. I think a lot of people at branch level in the SNP do that. But we just have to consider about moving forward. At the same time, we can be critical of the SNP, but see, when it comes to 2026, I would encourage very much all the smaller parties to work together now, right this very second, with the same voice, and to sort of educate Scotland about how the D'Hondt system works, how your second vote is probably the most powerful, especially if you're voting for parties that don't have any constituency seats. We'll have to do another whole video about that. On the YouTube channel, I've got quite a few videos about that already, so I will stick them up on the Saorsa Facebook page for anybody to go and have a look at, okay? And Kareem, you're right. Greens can't be trusted. The Greens need new leadership, because the lassie in the Greens has said that she'd be quite happy to work with Unionist parties if they got into power in Holyrood. Don't want that. I've voted Green for my second vote pretty much since the conception of Holyrood. Won't be doing it this time just because of that. I have a lot of trust issues. A lot of trust issues there. And that's the only party that I'm not waving a flag for. They are on my website and they are on my posts. But that's just because I want them to change. Okay. I like that, Henry. I'll be voting SNP 1, Alpa 2, ISP 3, and the rest can go begging. Cool. I like ISP. Colette's on the private Facebook group as well. I like Colette. She's very, very friendly. I'm going to try and, if Colette or anybody friends with Colette that's watching this just now, I need to get in contact with her. I want to speak to her about free ports and those other things. I want to do a video basically about them. Okay, good. What was that? Was that part 3? Yes, we're going into part 4. This is the good part. This is the interesting part, because after this part, we're going to go to the Electoral Commission's website live, and I'm going to show you how Labour are not a Scottish party up here at all. All right, cool. Right, where did we get to? We're 9,000 likes now in TikTok land. It's got 1,000 to go. Keep tapping that screen, please. Please, 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 please. Let's have a quick last look before we move on in Facebook land. Believe in Scotland are building a party. Do you think they're building a party? They never wanted to be political. You know? That's interesting, Bruce. I know that they're wanting to work with everybody. Saorsa, this my little campaigning group, is affiliated with them. We're pretty much a purely digital campaign, a national sort of digital campaigning sort of group, which is good. Link will be great. I haven't come across you on YouTube yet. So it's at Saorsa Scott. If you do, Bruce, if you do youtube.com/at Saorsa Scott, okay, you'll find all the videos I've made there. I usually do it in kind of like a theme process: Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Like this week it's all been about evolution, not devolution. Last week it was about like my views about a Scottish economy. Week before that was like Westminster tools for undermining Scotland and stuff. So I try to do it outside of the usual sort of conversations that people have. Anyway, I'm rambling. Let's get on with this right now. So here we go. We're going to imagine one more time here. A parliament where decisions that shape your future aren't truly made by those people who you elected. Parliament where parties that claim to represent you are taking their orders from another country. And that is the reality of Holyrood today. With Unionist parties, the Scottish Conservatives, the Scottish Labour and the Scottish Liberal Democrats firmly tethered to their Westminster counterparts, these parties, despite having Scottish in their name, remain deeply embedded within the structures of a UK-wide organisations, which prioritise the Union over Scotland's needs, as we have said repeatedly tonight. The question we must ask is simple. How can these parties with financial, structural and political ties to Westminster truly represent Scotland? The answer lies in the very framework that governs these parties. According to the Electoral Commission, all political parties in the UK, including those in Scotland, must comply with the same registration rules, financial oversight and organisational structures as their counterparts in England and Wales. This means that Scottish Labour, Scottish Conservative and Scottish Liberal Democrats are not independent Scottish entities. They are merely regional branches of the UK-wide political machines. Their decisions are not made in Holyrood, they are dictated by leadership in London, and I've got a video to play you later about that as well. Financially, structurally and politically, these parties are tied to Westminster, making it impossible for them to put Scotland's needs first. They are bound to the priorities of the UK, and that means Scotland's interests will always come second. The reality has profound implications for Scotland's future. Under current UK law, Scotland cannot demand that only fully Scottish-centric parties operate in its devolved parliament. I really don't see why. Why can't we have Scottish-based parties talking about Scottish things instead of one Scottish party and one Alapa person, okay, talking about Scottish stuff and being sort of like ridiculed by Unionist parties? Crazy. So even if the Scottish Parliament voted to require political parties to be registered and funded solely within Scotland, it would still require Westminster's approval. The Scotland Act of 1998 ensures that party registration and broader constitutional issues remain under UK control. This means that Scotland is legally prevented from having truly Scottish parties, independent of Westminster's influence. The result? A political system where Unionist parties cannot prioritise Scotland without first considering the broader UK context. Take the Scottish Conservatives, for example. In 2016, they voted decisively to remain in the European Union, but the Scottish Conservative Party fell in line with Westminster's pro-Brexit stance. They not only accepted Brexit, but over time supported an increasingly more hardline versions of it, including the threat of a no-deal Brexit. When forced to choose between the will of their Scottish electorate and the loyalty to the UK, the Tories chose the latter. The loyalty to Westminster has consequences beyond Brexit. It fundamentally undermines the legitimacy of devolution. How can devolution work if a party or parties are taking their orders from somewhere else? So faces similar challenges. Although they initially opposed Brexit, they have since fallen in line with the UK Labour leaders Keir Starmer's pledging to make Brexit work, even though rejoining the EU would align with the will of the Scottish voters. Scottish Labour has not made it a priority. Instead, they continue to follow a UK-wide Labour policies, demonstrating that their first loyalty is to Westminster, and we can clearly see that from this year's general election. Instead, they continue... Oh, hang on. I've got an error message in YouTube land. YouTube land, can you still hear me? Please give me a thumbs up and a yes if you can. That would be amazing. It's a big error message flashed across my screen. It seems to be working fine elsewhere. Good. Right. Anyway, where were we? The Liberal Democrats no different. Traditionally pro-European, they too have struggled to distinguish themselves from the UK. Their policies and strategies are largely dictated by the broader UK party, making it difficult for them to present a truly independent vision for Scotland. At the heart of this issue, though, is the tension between unionism and devolution. Unionist parties fundamentally are committed to maintaining the United Kingdom, even when that weakens Scotland's autonomy. And again, that was made clear during the Brexit negotiations. When power is repatriated from the EU, could have been devolved to Holyrood, Westminster retained control over key areas like food standards, environmental protections, and powers that could have strengthened Scotland's autonomy. Instead of opposing the centralisation of power, the Unionist parties supported it, undermining more devolution, basically, and actually showing their loyalty to Westminster over Scotland. As long as these Unionist parties continue to dominate the political landscape in Holyrood, and they do dominate it, all right, we might have a SNP government in there, but the Unionist parties will always undermine and work to undermine everything that is pro-Scottish. That's the way my mentality works now. I'm not just pro-independent, I am pro-Scottish, because I do not see one bit that the Unionist parties are pro-Scottish. I'm going to go back to what somebody said on Facebook about this, okay? That it's not helpful if I'm saying that people like Willie Rennie, for instance, is anti-Scottish. I don't think Willie Rennie is anti-Scottish. I really don't. I think the main parent party of the Scottish Liberal Democrats are pro-union, which makes them not pro-Scottish. So take as that as you see, because how can Willie Rennie put the people of Scotland first if he takes instruction from Westminster? How can Anna Sarwar do that, or whoever the weirdo is that runs the Tories now in Scotland? I don't know his name, don't really care. But how is that possible? And how is me saying that unhelpful? Because I think it's really helpful if people have the mindset of like, wait a minute, how can Labour be pro-Scottish? How can the Tories be pro-Scottish? They can't. They can't. It's really just not possible.
Imagine a parliament where the decisions that shape your future aren't truly made by those you elected. That's the reality of Holyrood today, where Unionist parties, the Scottish Conservatives, Labour and Liberal Democrats remain tied to their Westminster counterparts. These parties, despite their Scottish branding, follow UK-wide policies, prioritising the Union over Scotland's unique needs. How can parties so embedded in UK structures ever truly represent Scotland? The truth is, they can't. Their decisions are dictated by leadership in London, making Scotland's interests secondary. As long as these Unionist parties dominate Holyrood, Scotland will never be fully in control of its destiny. The only solution is independence, where Scottish parties truly represent Scotland.
Right, I'm going to wrap up and then we're going to go on to a little chat and look at other couple of videos that I've got. It's a bit of a longer live tonight. So, in a nation that seeks control over its own future, relying on parties bound to Westminster as its interest is keeping Scotland in chains. Unionist parties may claim to serve Scottish interests, but their loyalty is to London. London shapes their decisions, not the Scottish people. How can parties answerable to another government even prioritise Scotland's unique needs? The SNP has shown what true commitment to Scotland looks like. Love them or hate them, they've done more for Scotland than any of the Unionist parties, and we need to remember that, okay? Because when we're independent, SNP are not going to be in power, alright? People have said, I want independence, but not with the SNP. Vote for independence, then you'll have other parties spring up and be in Holyrood. Anyway, the truth is undeniable. Scotland's future cannot be fully realised under parties whose first loyalty is to the Union and not to Scotland. Westminster-based parties have no place in Holyrood. They have no place in Holyrood at all. For Scotland to stand on its own terms, free of outside interests, the next step is clear. Independence, independence and independence. That's where Scotland's future is shaped by Scotland alone. That's where we have a decision to make things work much better for us.
I can't get no sleep.
Tune. I love that tune. I use it quite a lot. It's me back to my trancey, housey days of the 90s. Yeah, we won't go into that. That's for a whole different life. Listen, right. Thank you for getting this far. It's just hit midnight, so I can start swearing, which is great. And we're just going to go through a couple of wee things. I wanted to show you. Let me just bring it up on the screen here just now. I'm going to quickly go to this here. This is a web page. Look, it's live. Woohoo! That's me scrolling up and down, and you can see me waving in the corner up at the top here. All right. So we are going to go here. We are going to go to the Great Britain Register of Political Parties. Okay, I want to show you Labour. Dun 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 dun. Right, okay, so to make this easier, so just so you can see, this is the Electoral Commission's website. Alright? And you can go and do this yourself. You can go and do the search and it'll be dead easy. Okay, so we want to look at political parties. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down here and click on the oldest. It's the easiest way to search, and what we have here are the oldest parties at the top of the list. Okay, so SNP, Tories, Lib Dems, and the wanky Labour Party. Yeah, midnight, love it. Okay, so we're going to take the Labour Party as a thing, and I'm going to make the screen bigger as well so you can see it if you're in TikTok land, because I'm looking at my phone monitoring TikTok and it's totty. Listen, if you're watching in TikTok land, hold on 1 second. See if you get your phone, right? There is a bit on your phone that you can make it go that way and it goes landscape. All right. There should be, I think it's a little square or something. So you can watch it in glorious landscape properly. It's amazing. It's astounding. Right. Let's go back to this thing. Cool. So, Labour Party. Let's make this a bit bigger. See that? Labour Party. Right there. Labour Party. Registered. Labour Party. Right? Keep going. Oh, look. That's where it's registered, down in London. There's Keir Starmer and all the other wanky Labour people. There's their logo. There is their Welsh logo. And there is the Scottish Labour logo. Okay? Please take note, this isn't a Scottish Labour Electoral Commission hingy. Alright? So, this is the names that, because you're allowed, I can't remember how many names you're allowed to have registered under the Electoral Commission, but they've got the Labour Party candidate, Scottish Labour Party candidate, and there is the Scottish Labour Party. Hold on. Right there. See that? That is who Anas Sarwar is the alleged leader of. Look, back to the top. It says Labour Party. Right? And let's go back down. It gets more interesting. Okay? Because there are these things called accounting units. Okay, so basically, Scottish Labour, where are we? Let's go back. Scottish Labour Party is a name, an extension of UK Labour. They are not an entity unto themselves at all. And if we go down, we will eventually come to these things called accounting units. Right, so there are flipping loads of these, right? So I'm going to basically, I think there's a way that I can bring them all up. I don't want to do next. So yeah, so I'm going to click on all down here. So it has them all. And then I'm going to scroll right the way down till we get to the S's. There we go. And where is it? Whoops. Hang on, let's go back down a way. Yeah. Nearly there. I can't do small talk while I'm surfing. Alright? I can't do it. I'm rubbish at small talk. My wife says I'm alright at small talk, but when I'm doing this sort of thing. Right, anyway, found it. Oh crap, what have I done? Made it smaller. Oh my god, what's wrong with you, Mo? Sweet, right, hold on. There it is, right there. Okay, so a wee bit more, a wee bit bigger. There we go. Well, I'm going the wrong way. Right, okay. I'm going to get it. I'm going to show you this. These are all the... Can you believe that every single one of these accounting units is affiliated with the Labour Party? I'm getting bored. Let's just go this way. Tell me when we hit S's, please. URSSRRRR. And Scottish Labour Party. There it is. Who is Mr. John Paul McHugh and Miss Sharon Maguire? Do they have more authority over the Scottish Labour Party than perhaps Anna Sarwar? But look, Scottish Labour Party, nothing to do with the people of Scotland. It is an accounting unit. It is a name on a bit of paper that takes their orders from Westminster. I find that quite disturbing, to say the least. To say the least. Yes, Tam, how are you? Branch office manager, without a doubt. Hi, Ace of Spades. The sound was jumping in and out over there. I've got excellent connection now, it says over there just now for it. So whatever happened has been and gone. It might have been another solar storm. One last thing to show you tonight. Okay, and this is something that it came kind of across the group chat in the Saorsa's WhatsApp group, and it was an alleged, I'm saying alleged because I've gone and used this with artistic license, okay, to make it look a lot more controversial than it is, because I kind of like doing that sort of shit, okay? It's just who I am. Let's make something a bit bigger than it actually is. But it is somebody who is formerly of Labour who has come out and said, you know something, Labour are crap. Labour, Scottish Labour, take their orders from Westminster. So it's a Labour person actually saying this, which is great. And I need to find my button for it here. Where is the button for it? Where is that screen capture? Oh, special one. That's it there. So this is done in the style of a whistleblower with the voice and everything. And what I've done is I've taken the text that he wrote, or she, or whatever, okay, and turned it into a digital thing. I'm going to post this across the websites as well, and across on TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, everything, because I think it'll be funny. Just have a wee listen and watch. It's about 2 minutes long.
Labour in Scotland will say that they promise this and that, and that they'll stand up to Westminster. However, the reality is they can't, and they won't. This is because they are run exactly the same way as the party down south. That's because they are the same party. Annis will try and claim that the party is Scottish, but the reality is, it's just a branch office, an accounting unit. Has regular conference calls with the head office in Westminster to dictate policy, and everything that Sarwar speaks at First Minister's questions or to the media is decided for him, not by him. All 37 MPs are simply yes men, and even if they know the policies are bad for Scotland, they will vote for them anyway, against their country's own wishes, and against the better interests of their country. This is a big contrast to what has been seen by the 8 Labour MPs in England who had the whip removed for voting against the party on the winter fuel allowance. Labour MPs from Wales will also not hesitate to stand up against Labour's cruel policies, as have Labour mayors in England. The reality is, Labour are not interested in Scotland and are simply using their MPs to push through policies that no one wants. They're just lobby fodder. And don't forget that Sarwar voted for cuts and austerity when he was an MP and continues to support them to this day despite saying "read my lips," which had no true legitimacy whatsoever. This is why I left Labour. A Sarwar can't tell the truth and will lie for political gain. And thankfully, the Labour Party has now been exposed for what it is. A hardline, right-wing, cruel and sick party.
I quite liked making that this afternoon. So yeah, that text that was just said there kind of came across somewhere in my WhatsApp groups for Saorsa, and I think it was on Facebook. And you know, whether it's true or not, it makes a compelling ending for tonight's show. And I think that we all have to understand that as long as we have Unionist parties that are not pro-Scottish, parties that will never put you, your families, your workplaces, your friends, your future first. And like I say, love them or hate them, the SNP have done far more than any of the Unionist parties have for Scotland. So think about that. Start getting into the mindset of, like, why do we have English-based parties, Westminster-based parties, Unionist parties discussing what is best for Scotland in our devolved parliament? Why do we need them there? And how do we get them out? Getting them out, we'll never get them all out. Okay, we won't. But we can have a damn good try in getting most of them out. And you have to educate your friends, your family, people that believe in Scotland about their second vote. Listen, even if you don't believe in the SNP, vote for them to be a minority government. Alright? There's no point in fighting and getting into a political mindset of thinking, let's all get constituencies for the wee parties. Don't do that. Don't do that. Right? It will not work. That's when the vote does get split. Let the SNP fight for the constituencies. Give the SNP that vote. Okay? They will not get a majority government. Right? So they'll be forced to talk to the other parties. And when they talk to 30 other pro-Scottish, pro-independence MSPs with their bums firmly planted in Holyrood for 5 years, we can achieve so much more, and we can push forward with our independence agenda. You have to get into that mindset. We really, really do. Have a quick round robin of saying thank you to people. 911 24/7, thank you so much for joining us. Aquarius, Henry, Robert, Terry, Solway, everybody across, and Vinny that was also in YouTube land. David Cable and Connor, you joined us, and Tam as well, Ace of Spades, McD, everybody that's tapped that screen tonight that's taken us to just over 10,000 likes in TikTok land, and the cool people that took the time. Martin, how are you? In Facebook land as well. No more tumbleweeds there. I really appreciate that. We had Julie earlier on today, and we've had Bruce as well. It was a pleasure to speak to you, Bruce. I will make sure that the link goes up on the Facebook page and tag you in on it for... let me just take a quick photograph so I spell your name right when I'm looking for you. Hold on. There we go. Photograph. Boom. Okay. And listen, if you've not subscribed to the YouTube channel, please do. It's a great way of us getting the message out. It's probably the most consistent way of putting the videos. We write blogs, we do everything here. Okay, we do videos, blogs, we're experimenting in podcasts as well, and something called mini pods. It's just the time it takes to do them all. We want to be a very non-partisan, pro-independence, pro-Scottish campaign until we've been around for a couple of years. We just move along quietly, speaking to people. So please, let me put out a massive thank you to everybody that's watched tonight. I hope I've not been too rambly. And next week, oh boy, next week's theme is going to be Scotland bad. We're going to look at everything that is said about Scotland being bad and the truth of it all. We're then going to turn it on its head, and we're going to go England bad and look at all the incredible things that the Unionists fail to broadcast north of the border about how crap things are down south. Okay, we're going to do that. We're going to look at the psychology of that. We're going to look at the method of propaganda, because I think that would be really interesting to do. Okay, so listen, thank you so much. Where's my ending button gone? I've lost my ending button. Let me just go back a screen. See, I've got this thing called, it's a wee button pushing thing that makes everything come up. But there we go, I see it now. Listen, if anybody is on Discord, I'll be on in 5 minutes. Until next week, and for the videos, thank you for watching. Yeah.
I'll reach my